Hello, I'm Dr. Mikey Mewborn, and this is Church Ministry. Today we're looking at the topic, Administering Support Activities. In every church, there are a lot of support roles that each staff member will play. The pastor has a support role. The educational staff has a support role. The music staff has a support role, it plays a support role, as well as the administration. And so when we look at all these things, how does each one of them contribute to the success of a church or the health of a church? And so we're going to look at some of those things today. It's good to be with you. Let's begin our study. Hello and welcome to Church Ministry. Today we're looking at the topic, Administering Support Activities. We're getting our outline notes from Robert Welch's book, Church Administration. So good to be with you today. Let's begin our study. I want to start by looking at the topic of pastoral support activities. There's a lot of different activities that the pastor will be involved in his life. It may be an activity that is for him or something that he actually does. And so within the pastoral support activities, you're going to have ordinations, marriage ceremonies, funerals, counseling, family life, and recreation. And I want us to kind of look at this list as a whole, but also in some specifics. The first thing is the ordination. As an ordained minister, there are certain things that a person can do that are very important. It might be that they can go and preach in different places because they have an ordination certificate. It also might mean that they can do weddings and enable them to do that. I remember when I was ordained, the reason for my ordination at first was not just because I knew I was called to ministry, even though that was a big part of it, but because my best friend was wanting to get married to the love of his life. And so he asked me, can you please get ordained in the next 3 to 4 months so that you will be ordained and you can do my wedding. And I said, okay, well, I'll work on that. And knowing that I was already called to ministry, I talked to the pastor and he said, yes, let's go about doing this. And so he was the person who oversaw my ordination. And that was really important for me because I wanted him to be there. I had other people that I invited to that ordination ceremony as well as interview that would be a big part of endorsing me into the full-time gospel ministry. And so that ordination meant a lot to me in pastoral ministry. Marriage ceremonies, of course, there's a lot of things that go into a pastor's life where he's doing premarital counseling, marriage counseling. Of course, he's doing marriage ceremonies, all that type of thing. So he needs to understand what that means. Funerals as well. Sometimes people wonder, how does a minister do these types of things? Well, sometimes it's just learning by experience, but other times it's possibly learning, getting a script for doing a funeral or doing a wedding and then personalizing it with that couple. That's sometimes helpful when you're looking at how does it all play out. And then the counseling aspect of it. Every pastor has a counseling role. That means when someone comes in with a difficult issue, the pastor works with them as much as he possibly can and professionally can. And what I mean by that is if he is in an area or a topic that the counseling is going into that is maybe above where he is in his training, he needs to pass that on. And sometimes he would need to have some numbers for some counseling ministries on hand so that he can give those numbers to that person, or maybe he'll contact that counseling ministry so that they can reach out to the person can reach out to them. And that way, kind of helping with topics or issues that are a little bit more than the pastor should be dealing with. And then family life and recreation, the pastor has a role in the life of the families and how the families work and the recreation of the families and how all that takes place. And so he'll pour into that and he'll support those things as a minister of the gospel for churches. So this is a wonderful thing when you're thinking about what the pastor brings to a church and the different roles that he'll carry and the different things, responsibilities that he'll have. So this is very important. Also, we see there's an educational support that is needed within churches. And one of the things that's important to bring is curriculum. The church, the education staff, or the one who is over that, maybe an administrator, they're responsible for making sure that people have curriculum that they need to teach their classes. So if it's a small group, if it's a Sunday school class, or if it's a Wednesday night type of class, missions class, whatever it might be, if curriculum is needed, it needs to be purchased or ordered by the education staff. And so when that comes in, they will have the resources that they need to do the classes as needed. And then another one is media center. This is somewhat outdated, I think, for most churches. They don't have a library per se. They don't have a CD ministry per se. A lot of things are live stream. A lot of people are not going to the church library to check out books. They're getting them on their iPads or their phones or whatever it might be. So those aren't as known today, the media centers, but there still might be a bookstore in a church, and so that can help as being the media center for a church. Also, there might be something like an internet cafe type place for people that want to come in and use the Wi-Fi, whatever it might be. They can get some coffee while they're in there. So there's some of that as well. Childcare issues. A lot of churches offer childcare programs for people throughout the week. Maybe it's a program like Mother's Day Out, and so children can go to that, but they can while they're there, the people that are working in the church, their children can go in there as well. So that's a great opportunity. So there's some different things that you can look at for childcare. Some church staffs have a full-time childcare set up. Some of them don't. You have to find your own. So there's different ways to look at that. And then training, educational staff needs to provide training for people that need that, and then the venue for instruction. So whatever that looks like, there needs to be a place where instruction can be given and training can be given. I thought this was kind of neat when we're talking about education support. If we think about this 4-week curriculum called Advent for Kids, this is a wonderful thing, because what this will do is give maybe an outline of what should be taught during this 4-week period, so that kids can understand the coming of Jesus Christ onto the scene in what we say leading up to Christmas. And so this curriculum might be something that a children's pastor would want, so he would need or she would need to be involved in getting that done as an educational staff member. And so getting that should all be supplied by the church. That'd be an important thing to look at. All right. Then also music support activities, the organization for a program of music. Now, programs of music, or you might even look into the order of a service type thing. When you're looking at this, you're going to start thinking through the type of music that we have, but how are we going to arrange that type of music? What is it going to look like? Are we going to have a set of songs and then a break where we have a welcome time, then another set of songs, and then we'll have a video, or we'll go right into the preaching, whatever it might be? Well, there's an organization to that so that the music can be a great expression of worship from the congregation, of course, the Lord God Almighty. And in that, there's a pastor or a worship pastor that's leading that. So that's important when you think of that. And then a process for administering resources. There's a lot of resources involved when you're talking about music ministry. Of course, there's a lot of things involved that deal with the technical side of things. Maybe it's a microphone, maybe it's a sound system, or speakers, or soundboard, monitors, those types of things. So you might need that, right? But then the other side is instrumentation. You have to have instruments to be able to do that. Do you have the right type of instruments? Do you have the right way to express those instruments? Do you have the right people to play those instruments? And so you're going to start working through looking at administering resources, and then a scheme for integrating with other ministries. I think one of the great ways to look at this is possibly through a children's program, children's Christmas program. That's a great way for the church, the music ministry of the church, to get other people involved. So if it's a children's Christmas program, or if it's a student Christmas program, or the students want to lead the worship, maybe they have their own worship band or worship choir, whatever it might be there. That's how you can get people involved. Maybe the senior adults have a choir and they would like to come and sing for specific things. Whatever it is, it's good to get other people involved in that activity, which we call music support activities, and that's always a good thing to look at. And then administrative support activities. I just have a couple things here that we can touch on because we've already looked at a lot of this with administration already. But transportation administration, church vans, church buses, rental vehicles. One of the things that'll be very important for an administrator to do at a church is to think through transportation. How do we get people to the church possibly? Maybe you have a bus ministry and there's a group of people within an apartment complex or a housing complex where they say, we want to come in and we want to be a part of what's going on Sunday morning, Sunday nights, or Wednesday nights. And so you start a bus ministry and start bringing people to that service. So that might be one way to look at it. Also, you might have needs for the people that are in the church to get them to a location. Maybe it's a conference or maybe it's a mission trip or whatever it might be. How are you going to get them there? Do you have a church van? Do you have a church bus? Who's able to drive that bus? Who's qualified to drive that bus? And that's going to depend on the size of it and all those types of things. And then, would it be better to have rental vehicles? Or would it be better to have somebody to charter a trip through with a bus company, something like that? So when we look at this topic of transportation, you have to weigh out the numbers there to see what's more affordable for us. Is renting or is having a church van or church bus more affordable for the church? And I think that's important to look at. Also with food service, that's another thing that administrators must evaluate. Wednesday night meals, for instance, should that meal be paid for by in-house cooks? Or should it be catered in? And that's the kind of the next point there. Catering versus in-house cooks. When we think about this, it might be easier and more affordable if we say, we're going to have our own cooks on site, and those people are going to cook our meals. But if you think about that, you have to pay them to cook your meals as well as pay for the ingredients for the food. Okay? So what's the best way to go about it? And sometimes a lot of churches find that it's easier if we cater in those meals because we can get a better bang for the buck, as you would say. All right, so that's important. I want to show you this last little picture here. This is a picture of a church bus. I don't know if you've ever been on a church bus like this. I've been on several of these, and most of the time when you're going on a trip, they break down. And so you're having to deal with all of that always. But I always think that's fun to look at when we're talking about church transportation. All right, so good to be with you today. This has been Administering Support Activities. God bless you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. All right, that concludes our study today. It's been so good to be with you. This is a wonderful topic for us today because it helps us to understand more about what the pastor does, the educational staff, as well as the music staff, administrators. These people are so important to the health and the success of a church. And so it's good for us to know these things, especially if we play a role in these things as well. It's good to be with you. God bless you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.